Absolutely. I think UK has figured it out. You guys don't have any cetaceans in captivity, and that's what we're asking here. The announcement from Joel Manby yesterday was reminded me of an old Wendy's commercial here in the States. Where's the beef? You know, SeaWorld has been saying that they have been doing natural behaviors for years, and I don't see this announcement as anything new, to tell you the truth.
Why is it cruel? What is cruel about it?
Tilcom, for example, can only swim 2 body lengths in one direction before he has to turn around. These are animals that swim 1,000 feet a day regularly to go get food. So think about it. It's not that hard to figure out.
What sort of treatment did you witness when you were working for SeaWorld?
I personally helped drill out the pulp of the teeth of these animals because they break them on the concrete and steel gates that are used to segregate them from one another. When you're doing a show of killer whales, you can usually only have 1 or 2 animals out in the front pool. So to keep them separated, you use steel gates. These animals will get on either side of the gate and break their teeth on the steel bars, and then that leads to a pulpotomy procedure, which is cruel and inhumane. It's just time to empty the tanks. This was an old practice that began with the Roman circus. It's time to end it.
What sort of, how does their anxiety manifest itself? You say they chew on the iron bars. What else would you highlight?
Well, they sit there and do stereotypic behaviors like staring at the wall or grinding their teeth on the concrete or fighting amongst themselves. These animals aren't naturally in their natal pods. They're brought in from different parks. They don't have the family relationships that animals in the wild do, so they fight a lot. And sometimes this fighting has led to injury and death in some of the killer whales at SeaWorld.
What will happen to the animals, the mammals, once the shows stop?
Well, I don't think the shows are going to stop anytime soon. I think what needs to happen is some of the animals, if they qualify, need to be shipped out to seaside sanctuaries where they can be cared for by humans. The ones that can be released, it's a fair thought to try to do it, but I don't think most of them will survive on the wild in their own. SeaWorld can run these sea sanctuaries and still charge people to come see them. Right now, they can't swim hardly anywhere. They're in very tight spots. It's kind of like living in your living room your entire life. I don't think most people would want to do that.
Is there any part of the interactivity that these animals enjoy?
Yeah, similar to like a prison guard getting let out for recess. I guess you could say something along those lines. I mean, that would be the best analogy that I could make. I mean, look, I'm not trying to poo-poo SeaWorld. I just think they should change their business model. The UK has phased out cetacean captivity. Why can't we do it here in the States by following a good example?
What do we know about orcas, killer whales? What do we know about what they would do if they weren't in captivity? How do they live?
Well, they each have their own ecotypes or their own cultural subsets. They all eat different types of food. Animals in the Pacific Northwest tend to eat salmon. Animals in the North Atlantic tend to eat seals. Animals in New Zealand tend to eat sharks and rays. So they all have their different cultures, just like we have different cultures from people in the UK or people in China. So they all behave differently. They all have different languages that they use to communicate to one another. And I think they just aren't suited for captivity. Of all the species that you can have in captivity, killer whales are probably the worst one based on size and sophistication and intelligence. I just hope that we can make some progress here.
What about dolphins?
Dolphins don't do well in captivity either. I think cetaceans, look, I'm not a big fan of captivity, obviously. Animals would prefer to live in nature where they came from. It's a pretty basic thing to say, and I hope people will jump on board. Blackfish has been seen by 200 million people now, and the word is spreading. I hope people will watch it this Saturday on CNN here in the States.
And what about here in the United Kingdom? Lots of people from the UK go to SeaWorld on either coast of the United States. What would you say to them if they're thinking about incorporating a trip to SeaWorld in their trip?
Yeah, I used to perform at SeaWorld, and I met a lot of folks from the UK when I did that, especially after the performances at night. They'd buy me a beer and say, brilliant. I think the time is just ready to move on. I think that if people take a good look at the facts of this debate, it's really kind of what we call a no-brainer. And I hope you guys will make that move. I know that UK tourist is the largest sect that comes to SeaWorld in Orlando, followed by Brazil. So I hope that will change and people will stop spending money at SeaWorld and come to the Pacific Northwest where I live and see them in the wild. I'd be happy to take people out in a boat myself in Washington State. It's really pretty amazing to see them in that environment.
I might hold you to that. It's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on Sky News this afternoon. Thank you.